English translation, 81st contact, Sunday, 4th September, 1977, 11:03 Chars.
Ta, simyasea, Quetzal. Well, this is a surprise. To see you three together once, that is one thing. But it is a very good thing, because maybe I can find out about something that lies heavily on my stomach.
You will have to wait a bit, dear friend, because first I have something important to explain to you. As you well know, you have teamed up with Mr. Glanzmann, but you have not told us anything about it. That was not...
Excuse me, Ptah, but I really did not think it was necessary, because I was able to sort out the necessary things myself. On the other hand, I just wanted to ask a few questions about that, because things have arisen for which I need a detailed explanation.
I am now aware of this because our permanent analyzers, which we recently used to clarify your concerns, drew our attention to it. This is the only reason why we have been informed about these things and have tried to investigate the facts in detail. Nevertheless, when you tried to clarify the first appearing issues and recognized them as real, you should have informed us about the events. This would have meant that the whole matter would have been automatically monitored by us, which could have avoided what had happened now. I must praise you for your clarification.
Is it really that bad?
In the meantime, you have recognized it yourself because that is what you have questions about?
Exactly. I even wrote it down last night. I mean, what is the ultimate goal of it?
Now hear what I have to say to you. As you correctly analyzed, those contacts of Mr. Glanzmann that you recognized as contacts from the sphere closest to you and next higher to you, the Earth-Human Collective subconscious we form, were truly given. These contacts were made via Mr. Glanzmann himself for the purpose of taking over tasks and fulfilling the associated tasks, within the framework of a teaching of the truth, that the material realm of life must be brought into connection with the spiritual. So it would have been Mr. Glanzmann's task to dedicate himself instructively to the human beings of the earth in such a manner that he would have conveyed studies to them on how to master the purely material sphere of influence and how to guide it correctly in daily life and in connection with the consciousness-based path of evolution. But he was only obedient to this task in the first stage, after which he rebelled and let himself go into the realms of the purely material, disregarding his task and eager for purely material profit. Also, he did not stick to consulting with you in all things, as he was instructed to do by the WE form, in order to be master of his task in just form. Clearly and explicitly he was directed to you in order to obtain from you the standards for the fulfillment of his tasks and for his approach. For this purpose, he was clearly and explicitly given the name of one of your former personalities, as it was known in earlier times, about 2,500 years ago, when your personality at that time instructively worked on both areas of evolution for the Earth humans, which is not possible for you at the present time, however, because according to the given circumstances, you can only be active in the spiritual and consciousness-based area in extreme concentration. But now, Mr. Glanzmann has consciously alienated himself from his assigned task and reassessed the matter in a sense of financial profit. Thus, the true contact with the other sphere was lost to him, which he became absolutely aware of. Because of his actions in the wrong form, he lost the contact to the reality of the real contact with the other sphere of the human WE form, after which he did not even have the imagination of a still existing contact. So now he does not live on in an imagination that the contact to the other sphere would still exist. So he knows that this is not an interruption of coming back, resuming of contact, for the time of his present life. Because if a life form fails and malfunctions in this manner only once, A renewed establishment of contact can understandably not take place again, because there would always be the danger of a new failure. Through his desires, Mr. Glanzman shaped his consciousness into a form of imagining that he was something higher and a person with a calling, through which he continued to bring down written things and statements in self-invented form, which are really only controlled by himself and by his consciousness as a form of desire, but which he mistakenly consciously claims to be genuine and in this respect also makes his believers believe. But since he now lacks the necessary knowledge that would have been granted and transmitted to him if he had followed the task and fulfilled it, he deliberately falsifies your teaching and uses erroneous and false scriptures with illogical false doctrines, which he consciously evaluates materially and disseminates in a form similar to instructing, thus driving those who have become addicted to him into euphoric meditative states that they, in the addiction, believe to be the truth, although these are truthfully only hallucinations generated by self-suggestion, that is to say, imaginations in mostly pictorial form. It is precisely this form. However, that is extremely dangerous, for it is this form that leads to complete bondage in the realm of suggestively evoked hallucinations, which is very often provoked by false meditation teachers on the earth, who usually call themselves enlightened beings, masters and gurus in this foolish and dangerous game of delusion. Mr. Glanzman, however, is following the same path and has already infected some of your group with his wrongdoing and his false influence, whereby Bernadette, in particular, reacted extremely susceptibly. Some others also fell into the web of delusion and renewed ignorance, which is why it is imperative that you have an open and clear word with them all and present the truth to them. If you do not follow this advice, your community will soon disintegrate like brittle material, for which you already find the evidence in the fact that this embrittlement has already begun in the basic points. But it is still time to counteract further development in this form if you settle these issues within a month. However, you will meet with strong resistance, as has certainly already been the case with Bernadette, who has already acquired a certain sense of bondage to Mr. Glanzman's heresy. But these are still not all the things in this regrettable concern yet, because in Mr. Glanzman's consciousness the forces of domination over the group and the idea of inspiring your community are already working, since he wants to settle in as the determining factor of the overall chairman of the leadership. The idea has already matured in his consciousness to bring your whole community into his area of dependence in order to be able to work profitably as the highest leader. It is therefore appropriate that all of you immediately leave his direct and indirect spheres of influence and, if possible, completely prevent contact with him. This alone gives you the guarantee that you can keep yourself out of his sphere of influence to the best of your ability. No powers of any kind shall be recognized from outside your group in the future. Whatever teaching and knowledge you are responsible for will be exclusively received through you, given by you in the first place and by us from Arahat Athersata and from Patah Li, as well as at a later time possibly still from others. Never, then, should a member of your group from outside make any false teachings his or her own, but should only play on the truth that will be given by you as the proclaimer of the new times. If this advice is not followed, your community and your whole task will be endangered. And in your position you are still very susceptible, whereby only a few days can be enough to destroy everything completely, whereby then also we would have no more possibilities for help. Your community can only continue to exist and work well and fulfill the real task when everyone in the group finally realizes that the true knowledge and truth will only be given to you for instruction and dissemination, and that all this can only happen in connection with the true existence of your center. If, however, different ones in your group are constantly influenced by others and by erroneous and false teachings, they jeopardize your task and even that of the center. Certain events of the recent past can even be traced back to this, because through the unreasonableness of a certain member, Margaret Flammer, who, despite repeated warnings, continues to indulge herself with new spiritualistic sessions, negative swinging waves were able to spread from the medium in question, registered by a brain analyzer of the Giza intelligences that found a weak spot and consequently created that artificial insect, with the help of a malignant refugee group from a space-time displaced area of the Pegasus constellation guilty of bacterial contamination in the center. Other such dangers may reappear if this action is not stopped soon, for we too cannot keep all things under precise control, especially if our instructions are constantly violated, even though we only issue them for your own benefit. It should finally be just as clear to everyone that the members of your core group in particular are now at the point in time when all wrong actions should finally be defeated, and no one should surrender to erroneous teachings and delusional concerns.
That is easy for you to say, Ptah. At the moment, we still lack the time to sit down and discuss all things.
I know that, but nevertheless you should find a means to settle these matters within 1 month, once and for all.
I will try it, maybe in such a manner that I take every single one of them on my own. On the other hand, we will have this report so that everyone can read your words.
That is important, but I did not think of that at the moment. The reports that have been transmitted should indeed be sufficient.
Unfortunately, this is not always the case, as I have noticed on several occasions. The evil occurrence with the collapse of the wall could have been avoided if the reports had been followed. Simyase had long pointed out that the center was to be secured and guarded. However, this advice was not followed, which is why it was possible to push down the wall.
You know that?
It was not difficult to determine that.
How could that happen?
Through vibrational waves.
I do not understand that. Explain that in more detail, please.
It is a work by the Giza intelligences in collaboration with the refugees from the Pegasus area. They were located by and brought to the attention of the group in Brazil about 6 weeks ago, after which a connection was established between them. The merger with the Giza intelligences was then only a matter of time. Best oriented about the processes in your center and in detail about the group members, they also know about the growing existence of the actual value of the Sohar Center. But this, the actual value, means extreme danger for them, because when it is completed and when it is in operation, then they have finally lost. This is precisely what they want to prevent, which is why every inconspicuous path to destruction is right for them. So they took advantage of the knowledge of the Pegasus refugees and of their equipment. A swinging wave vibrator, working on a microwave basis, thereby came to them very conveniently in order to cause damage to the actual value of the developing Sohar Center and to possibly destroy it. A Pegasus refugee, whom you have observed, investigated the data of the value, after which on August 30th, around the 4th hour of the morning, the Pegasus ship was directed to the center to bring the swinging wave vibrator into action. The swinging wave bundle was placed behind the wall, which had already collapsed earlier due to a water ingress. The strong swinging waves released caused a very high vibrational wave, which within a few seconds pulled the nearly 150 centimeters thick concrete wall from its anchorage, lifted it a little and hurled it forward, which is why it had fallen so far forward.
Aha, that is why it was more than a meter forward. But one thing I do not understand. How could we have prevented this if we had stood on guard?
If you had followed Simyase's advice, this would not have happened. And this is why. The microwave swinging wave vibrators work with such a strong potency that in a few fractions of a second they are deadly to any form of life in such a manner that it acts like a lightning-fast aging process, which even an ignorant person could immediately detect. But this is precisely what the negative Giza intelligences cannot afford, namely, that things can be determined that point to their actual existence. If this were to happen, they would publicly expose themselves and reveal their existence, after which your explanations, which you would certainly spread, would be accepted by the Earth humans, and especially by scientists and the authorities, with the result that the Giza intelligences would be searched for, and every religion, which are their best aid for their world domination plans, would be shaken. Therefore, they must not do anything to indicate their existence, which is why they would not have done anything if any of you had watched in the vicinity of the area of value.
I understand. So, the twerps will not do anything that would be inexplicable to the Earth humans, which is why everything is arranged in such a manner that it looks as if it were earthly.
That is correct.
Have you seen the new wall yet? Can it now withstand these strange vibration rays or swinging waves?
It would not, but that cannot happen anymore. That is what my father is worried about, because he will get hold of the Pegasus refugees in the next few days and bring them back to their home planet, where they will be handed over to those responsible and put out of action, as you would say.
Aha, that is good. But do you think the wall will hold otherwise?
Sure, I was already of the assumption that you had gone mad when I saw it on the screen. It is more stable than it must be, which is very good because there is a dangerous water pressure from the mountainside.
Mountain pressure is what we say, my golden child. But tell me, Quetzal, how does the crazy vibration swinging wave work?
It is a swinging wave vibrator, not a vibration swinging wave. Unfortunately, I am not allowed to explain officially how it is constructed, but you can be assured that the Earth scientists are already developing these apparatuses in their early days. These, however, are completely different in operation from those of the Pegasus refugees. They are transformed step up by a precisely tuned thought-swinging wave, after which they then generate the necessary energy. The Giza intelligences are not able to do this because they are not able to generate these thought impulses, thus they were dependent on the Pegasus refugees. If they are no longer there when Ptah has taken them away, then the danger of a similar destruction of the actual value of the Sohar Center no longer exists.
But then how should it continue anyway? We cannot keep watch all the time, can we?
A stationary telemeter disc will float high above the center and continuously transmit the events under permanent connection with our station, which guarantees a certain protection from our side until the completion of the Sohar Center.
That is fine. Thank you very much. But now I would have another question if you have nothing more to explain to me.
I have made my statement clear to you.
I also have no further statements to make.
Some things about the Bermuda Triangle I still have to explain to you, as I explained to you confidentially at the contact before last.
Can you perhaps wait a little longer? Otherwise I will forget my concerns.
Sure, just ask.
Thank you. First, I would like to ask about the exact dates of our actual value, as Quetzal so nicely puts it. There are only 2 months left, and I should have the classification for the individual persons next.
I understand. You will receive these data in the course of the next week, if you have them available by Saturday at the latest. This was also planned without you having to ask for it. But I am glad that you are making an effort about this.
Then the matter is indeed in order. But what about the further rules of order?
These are the duties of the High Council, which will prepare them as soon as the new analyses is completed and sent to them.
Then that is also clear to me. My other question is this. How should I shape the major meetings at the center in the future? In my opinion, the time is ripe to deviate from the actual ufological facts and, on the whole, only to deal with teaching and advancing the spiritual concerns.
That is of importance. Cut back on the concerns around us and our ships, etc., to a large extent, and dedicate yourself only to the fundamentally important facts of the evolution of the spirit or the teaching of the spirit, creation energy teaching. At present, 2 or 3 members of the group are to be responsible for the interests of us and our ships. And later, all group members in general are to be instructed and taught about these matters both in the center and outside of it. You yourself should under no circumstances continue to deal publicly with the so-called ufological concerns, on the one hand for reasons of time limitations and on the other hand for security reasons, but also because your real mission work is much more important and of the greatest importance.
But that is a bad start, Ptah, because just for the month of November I promised 2 lectures for a cantonal vocational school in Thun.
That was not a good promise. Others should take over this task for you. The 30-kilometer limit still applies to you, from which you should not leave, and the same still applies to you, that you should not give any lectures outside the center.
Then I have to find someone.
You do well to do so, and the lectures should also be given, because these are also important. But you should be finally excluded from this work because it no longer falls into your area. Experiences and lessons learnt from others are enough in the meantime so that they can take over this task.
This is going to be tough, is it not?
It can be set up very well when the task is finally grasped and taken seriously by those concerned.
Well, I will try. But then another question. Like everyone else, I am interested in what is supposed to happen when I am gone. Will you continue to maintain contact with the group, or will it be dropped?
These things arise first. Your succession will only grow in little more than 4 years and will develop as intended, even if this is currently still not understood by several of your group members. But who your successor will be and how the things of the future will really be in the sense of your question, I can unfortunately not explain yet, because the time for it is still very premature. Therefore, we also still have no knowledge about it. But those things which you yourself must know, they are known to you, but you must not talk about what you know.
Of course, then it must be so.
I cannot change it, but after our conversation, I still have some important points to discuss with you, as well as my father and Quetzal, but I will not give them to you later as a report.
All right, I have known that for a long time. I do not have any more questions at the moment, so perhaps now you can make your statements about the Bermuda Triangle. Maybe there is another question that comes to my mind in the meantime.
Sure. My explanation does not take long. The issues surrounding the Bermuda Triangle and the centers of Madagascar and the Japanese Devil's Sea have changed fundamentally. As you know, your entire solar system travels like a gigantic spaceship through interstellar space, approaching more and more the constellation of Hercules, which will be reached in about 2 millennia. Due to this migration of the entire Sol system, the axis point of the radiation of those large celestial bodies, which cause the dimensional gates in the Bermuda Triangle, in Madagascar, and in the Japanese Devil's Sea, has slowly shifted more and more. For about 18 years now, radiation has become weaker and more time-differentiated, so that it has often been completely suspended for days on end. In the last 2 years, the radiation decreased even more and was completely neutralized several times, lasting months. The last offshoots of the radiation bands, which are measured in many light years, that were only fragmentary at their outermost ranges, last touched the Earth about 112 months ago on the 10th of July. Since then, the Earth is out of the range of the radiation, and no dimension barrier or dimension gate still exists at any other place on the planet. These phenomena are absolutely abolished and, according to our calculations, should never occur again because the whole Sol system orbits the constellation of Hercules, and there are no stars at closer or further distances that would produce this kind of radiation. All occurrences in the Bermuda Triangle, near Madagascar, and in the Japanese Devil's Sea have been classified since the 10th of July 1977 in purely earthly natural occurrences, whereby the natural occurrences are to be named as the most important forces, in particular the geomagnetic and underwater gas surges which occur very strongly at the places mentioned, whereby compass devices and many other navigation devices, etc., fail or show false indications, as this is the case with you at the center several times.
Do Madagascar, the Bermuda Triangle, and the Japanese Devil's Sea also lie at facet intersections like our center?
Certainly.
And is there then a connection with the radiation from space and with the facet intersections that was found there, or there of all places?
No, it was a pure whim of the cosmic game.
Oh, so. Then the 2 or 3% where unexplainable events took place at these points are really just cancelled. It was only 2 or 3% that refer to the cosmic, and thus to the inexplicableness of all events in these places, was it not?
Sure, because about 98% of all events at these three places were mainly caused by Earth magnetic waves and Earth magnetic storms, as well as by climatic rapid changes, storms, aberrations, mutiny, crimes, and insurance fraud, as well as on a large scale by enormous undersea gas eruptions, etc.
Too bad. Now for the parapsychologists, esotericists, and other delusionists. Fantasists and idiots, another world is ruined again. But if not everything deceives me very much, then these jerks will soon find a suitable replacement, only perhaps 1,000 times more stupid, more primitive and crazier than what was so far.
This will be the case, for the stupidity of the earthly man still knows no bounds, and especially not of the newest and probably so far most stupid religion that ever dominated the earthly humans, namely the parapsychology of sectarian and delusional form.
Man, oh man, Ptah, I have never heard you talk like that before.
I think that your own manner of expressing yourself is also justified with us if we have to clarify some of the earth-human concerns. In our vocabulary, we do not find these apt expressions, as they are appropriate for the stupidity of many earth-humans, which is why I resort to your own vocabulary, as we tend to do more and more in the manner we speak and in the use of your idioms.
That sounds damn strange from you, Ptah. It almost seems to me as if you are very depressed and therefore speak angrily.
That is the case, but it is not surprising when I find out again and again that the human being on earth apparently tries, by all means, to keep the truth quiet and to step into the mud with insane means like spiritualism and the whole sentence of the sectarian idiocy of religious parapsychology, the cult religions and cruel lies of all kinds, the worst of all being to claim that contacts with us or other intelligences and spirit forms living outside of the earth, who supposedly belong to us, would be maintained, although of all such lying claims, hardly one is true, because all are truly only lies. And these lies are still given faith by the unreasonableness of the earth-human, while your contacts with us are accused of being lies, although they alone are as real and true as the light of day. I would like—
Calm down, Ta, for you know that the time will be long before the Earth humans finally learn to understand and grasp. You also know the origin of the whole theatrics, and therefore know that you have to give all these ignorant Earthlings a chance first, and bring their ignorantly damned brains in shape, so that they can finally learn something else and learn to think.
You speak of things of correctness. Excuse my surge of emotions.
I do not know what you are talking about. Let us leave it at that and discuss the things Simyase mentioned.
Certainly. Father, I find his words good.
Your wisdom honors you, my friend. I thank you very much.
For nothing, dear Ptah, for in my place you would have acted equally.
With which you captured the truth another time. Then let us now deal with the other concerns. But I would not want to neglect to extend my very dear and cordial greetings to all your honest and missionary group members, and to express my deepest thanks to all of them for all their efforts and understanding.
I also want to do the same.
I also agree with these words.
I will be happy to tell them. Everyone will certainly be very happy. I remember another question. Yesterday, Simyase, did you think of any of us towards the late afternoon?
Of course. I was interested in your meeting, which is why I observed you for some time. I could see that you were very absorbed in your response when Elsie joined you. Her thoughts rushed to you, but you did not register them because you were busy elsewhere. So I tried to draw Elsie's attention with an impulse, but apparently I did not succeed. But why do you ask?
That is why. Elsie caught an impulse that was not from me, so it must have been from you.
She often receives impulses from me because she is very receptive to them.
I know, and she is also happy about it.
That is very sweet, but now we should turn to the other concerns.
Appendix to the 81st Contact, order rules drawn up by the High Council.
In order to live in a peaceful and progressive community, certain rules of order apply, depending on the state of evolution of the life forms concerned, which must be followed by urgent necessity. For the human beings of the Earth, whose state of evolution is very diverse, special rules apply, which are worked out according to their overall state of development in particular, and according to the state of the possibility of following the rules of the individual separately. These rules of order are given only by lengthy elaboration, in the present case, especially only for the group of the free community of interests, for the residential community in the center. 1. A personal living area is given to each individual, measured according to his or her personal needs, where he or she is absolutely able to maintain his or her intimacy, find the necessary peace and rest, and freely decide and act. 2. It is given that in the personal living area of each individual, no interference of persons from other living areas takes place, neither in personal nor impersonal form. There should be no reproaches, complaints, reclamations, discrimination, or orders. How the individual lives and acts and behaves in his or her living area is his or her concern alone, which is why no interference of persons from other living areas should take place. This is also given for the daily and other work arising in the individual personal living quarters of each individual, since no interference shall be made in any form whatsoever, whether oral, written, or manual, either directly or indirectly. 3. Absolutely taboo is the taking place of any interference by a third party in the personal life, thinking and acting of the individual, thus also the work, unless there are violations of the rules of order, which, however, should be objected to and regulated without exception by the person in charge of the community or by the whole community-sharing community if no other possibility is given. 4. Secretly complaining about, reclaiming, discriminating against, and becoming subject to harassment by members of the residential community should be refrained from. As a rule, as the observation and assessment of countless human forms of life over millions of years has shown, an act of secretly talking about third parties corresponds only to the plaintiff's own imperfect personality, emerging from an ill-considered and immature personal but false consideration. The plaintiff thus defends only a personal but false view, because it is the belief that the neighbor must conform to his or her actions and thoughts, whereby his or her own personality and all the rights associated with it are automatically denied him or her. 5. The treacherous suing for actions or statements by members of the residential community by other members should be prevented and not come to light. For millions of years, the rule has proven that traitorous complaints usually arise from weak personality deficiencies, which lead to people believing through ill-considered thinking that their own value is increased in the opinion of the complainants. This also applies to the thoughtless or cunning and malicious spreading of truthful or untruthful rumors or slander. 6. Members of other residential areas should not interfere in the discrepancies of personal interests of members of individual residential areas. If two or more members of a single residential community have disagreements to resolve, then these are their own concerns, which they must resolve without the interference of others. If the situation so requires, the person in charge of the community should exercise a purely advising and problem-solving function. But this should only be done jointly by the parties involved and to the exclusion of uninvolved third parties, so that the actual privacy of the residential area concerned and its persons is preserved. 7. Disagreements between different residential areas and their persons shall be settled by the person in charge through an immediate, useful, advising, mediating and problem-solving discussion with all concerned. 8. For any work that arises in the area of the entire residential community, a common distribution of work and the completion of work distributed evenly among the individual members shall apply. The individual areas of work shall be headed by competent persons who instruct and, if necessary, educate the persons entrusted to them in accordance with their abilities. For all the work that has to be carried out in the area of the entire residential community, each person shall carry out the workload assigned to him or her, voluntarily and without coercion, but without any willingness to evade or make excuses. Instructed work shall not be rejected for alleged incompetence or other incapacity. The point is that each individual should also gain independence in manual work and create the will to recognize what is necessary and to do it on his own initiative. 9. Parents of married residential community members should not be resident in the residential areas of their children. If parents of married residential community members are also resident in the residential community, they should be living in separate living areas in the future. 10. Parents of married members of a residential community should not interfere in any way in the interests of their married children, nor should the children interfere in the interests of their parents, which is also necessary if one of the parties is resident outside the residential community area. It also applies here that neither married partners nor single people let themselves be influenced in any manner by parents, outsiders, friends or acquaintances, etc., because any decision or action should be made or taken out of their own personality. For this, a self-knowledge and a certain independence is necessary, which can come from or be received only then if no influence from any side influences these factors. 11. Personal feelings, opinions and sentiments, etc. of individual members of the residential community towards other members shall be controlled by them extremely strictly and shall not lead to thoughtless speech or actions, etc. 12. No orders should be given in the residential community, nor should any domination requests appear. In a residential community, all members are equal and have equal rights, male and female. Each individual is classified in the same laws and recommendations without distinction. Consequently, the same rights apply to all. Laws and recommendations, as well as rules of order in a creational sense, are evident in the given writings of the Genesis and the Decalogue, etc., which should be the interest and will of everyone to learn and follow. 13. The management and leadership of the residential community should be assigned to a single responsible person, whose advisory board consists of a larger circle of a special group of members, core group, which has to determine over constantly arising interests, however never in commanding form, because a determination should be constant in advising or advice executing form. 14. The person in charge and in leadership of the residential community should be as well versed and educated as possible in all laws, recommendations, rules of order, and the spiritual teaching, creation energy teaching, because he or she should also be responsible for the spiritual teaching, creation energy teaching, as well as its dissemination through writings in every accessible area.